What's up guys, Xtian here. So previously, we've unboxed the new graphics card from Colorful, which is yung iGame GeForce RTX 4070 Ti Super Vulcan W o C16G-V. And as I said in the video, we'll be making another one for its performance testing or benchmarks. And this is it. So we'll be focusing only on this card for the meantime, and there will be no comparison or figures from other cards. But before we go on with the benchmarks, let me talk about some of the features of the card itself first. Since this is an NVIDIA RTX card, this will come with most of the current NVIDIA RTX features like DLSS 3, Reflex, Ray Tracing, NVIDIA Broadcast, Studio, at iba pa like NVENC or NVIDIA Encoder and Decoder. So for the card itself, we have some highlights, gaya ng pagiging mostly white nito with some silver accents, a magnetic ARGB module, and a highly customizable smart LCD panel which you can use either with a GPU or standalone with the included dock. So make sure to plug in first yung cable from the GPU to the USB 2.0 header sa motherboard before you customize it sa iGame Center. And dito sa iGame Center nila, you can check things like system information and monitoring, customize the lighting of the card, and syempre yung LCD screen. Here, I have customized 4 modes like CPU focus, GPU focus, double screen, saka yung clock. Then you can cycle in between them automatically, so magpapalit-palit siya. You can also add custom images if you want. There's also one-click overclocking button with 2 modes, which are normal and turbo. Perfect if you want to have some performance boost without tinkering with the software. Umiilaw ito ng blue kapag nakaset on turbo mode. It's also equipped with a metal exoskeleton that provides a stronger build for the graphics card, as well as vortex radiator, which is the card's cooling design. Triple 104mm fans with dual ball bearings, a larger cooling module, and a hollowed out backboard which helps on efficient dissipating the heat generated by the GPU. And as a result of that, this graphics card weighs almost 2 kilograms without the detachable LCD screen, and around 2 kilograms na when we have the LCD screen attached. So kakailangan na din talaga gamitin yung included na anti-sag accessory. So that's it for the features. So let's now talk about the performance of the card. For this, we've tested around 8 games at 2 resolutions, 1440p and 4K, and then some synthetic GPU benchmarks as well. So first game is with CS2. Here at very high settings, at 1440p, we got an average FPS of 213 and a 1% low FPS of 88. So this means even at its worst 1% low, you'll get a decent FPS. While on 4K naman, meron tayong average FPS of 122 and 1% low FPS of 77. Next is in Forza Horizon 5. Here at the extreme preset with ray tracing turned off. At 1440p, we got an average FPS of 123 and a 1% low FPS of 83. While in 4K, we got an average of 98 FPS and 75 FPS for the 1% lows. Not really bad considering the graphics for this game. On Assassin's Creed Mirage, at Ultra Preset and Ray Tracing turned off, at 1440p, we got an average FPS of 122 and 64 on the 1% lows. While on 4K resolution naman, we got an average FPS of 90 and on the 1% low FPS, we got 57. Considering the game genre, this is very playable. Starfield on the other hand, with Ultra Preset and also Ray Tracing turned off, at 1440p, we have an average FPS of 123 and 1% low FPS of 58. While on 4K naman, we got an average of just 75 FPS and 44 on the 1% lows. Being a new and graphically heavy game, somehow these figures were expected. Then with Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, obviously also a graphically intense game. With Ultra Preset and Ray Tracing still turned off, at 1440p, we only got an average FPS of 73 and 1% low FPS of only 29. While on 4K resolution, there's only 41 FPS on average and 21 on the 1% low. So obviously at 4K, medyo di na maganda magiging experience nyo dito since the game might feel sluggish or stuttery as well. So in the next 3 games, we'll check the figures with and without ray tracing or RTX and DLSS turned on. Para may idea din kayo when you try to use ray tracing with DLSS and DLSS 3 combined. With Cyberpunk 2077 on overdrive preset, As you can see, there's even higher FPS on average while using RTX on and DLSS 3, set to performance preset on both 1440p and 4K, compared to natively rendering it. Obviously, only using ray tracing or RTX will send the FPS numbers lower, pero this will be rescued by turning on DLSS or DLSS 3 along with RTX. And as a result, you'll get maybe some decent playable FPS figures. Kung di mo naman need yung ray tracing, you can just turn on DLSS instead for much higher FPS. On F122 naman, at ultra settings, the average FPS between native rendering and RTX on with DLSS 3 is pretty similar to each other at 1440p. While in 4K naman, the native rendered FPS or the one without any enhancements is still higher. On 1% lows, you'll see a much higher figure on the RTX on with DLSS 3 turned on as well. So you can still use ray tracing and still get comparable performance with native rendering by using DLSS. Again, you can turn ray tracing and leave DLSS on to get much higher frame rates. With Spider-Man Remastered on very high preset, there's also higher FPS on average on both 1440p and 4K when using RTX with DLSS 3 compared to native rendering and RTX on with the older DLSS version. So this game is probably one of the few that will actually benefit from this combination. And for some synthetic workloads, we've tested 3D Mark TimeSpy and TimeSpy Extreme, as well as V-Ray benchmark for both CUDA and RTX, as well as the Blender GPU benchmark. To add that, chinek din namin if the one-click overclocking feature really works, which added few megahertz into the core clock speed. So tinest lang namin with F122, and as we can see here, there's only a few FPS increase like 2 to 5 FPS lang. And in terms of cooling performance, I think the card handled the heat impressively. As you can see here, the card idled at around 35 degrees Celsius, and during a 30-minute run of F122 to test it, the card only reached a maximum of 62.6 degrees Celsius with an average of 60.7 degrees. All with an ambient temp of around 30 degrees. Nakaupo ang aircon, hindi ba ako gumagamit ng aircon yan, okay? So this means yung cooling system nito can handle this card without any problems. So for the fan noise, I think this is on the quiet side. Although syempre at 75% speed and upwards, you can already hear it at a sitting distance from the case. So depending on the load ng GPU, your fan speed might ramp up in a very high load and annoy you dahil maingay, pero that can be fixed by just tuning the fan curve. In my opinion, the iGame GeForce RTX 4070 Ti Super Vulcan WOC 16G-V from Colorful is a good choice if you're planning to get an RTX 4070 Ti Super card. I like its design. And being white, so pang white build, of course, very perfect ito. Okay din yung smart LCD implementation nito, considering that you can add another display somewhere in your rig or maybe in your desk to see maybe a custom image or system information, gaya ng thermals and CPU, GPU usage. Also, the cooling performance of this card is very good. Even at hotter ambient temperatures, hindi siya ganun kainit. Performance-wise, I think it's really the best at 1440p gaming, especially kung trip nyo at the highest settings. Pero this can definitely do 4K gaming, but hindi nga lang on ultra high or yung pinakamataas na settings for you to get playable or decent FPS numbers. We have the higher tier cards for that. Price at 72,000 pesos SRP, I think this is a bit more expensive compared to the Nvidia reference card priced at around 55,420. But I think we can consider some factors for this. Like being white theme, there's actually a premium price for white components sa ngayon, as well as some gimmicks gaya ng detachable and standalone smart LCD. At iba pa, of course, added selling points din yung Nvidia features if you're using them.